The Fred Whitton Challenge is renowned throughout the cycling community for its stunning location and its severity. However, the reason for its existence is less commonly known. This film explores the history of its creation.
We met in 1971 and I was a barmaid over at a club in Barrow, and I spotted him on the dance floor, and he went and asked my sister up to dance, and she was with a boyfriend, so she said no. So I said, I went over and I said, oh well, I'll have a dance then. So that's how we met. He walked me home that night and we've been together ever since. He'd just come out of a long relationship and I'd just come out of a long relationship, so we just said we'll be mates for a few years, see how we get on. And then 5 years later we got married. He was a keen cyclist, and it was never known. Nobody ever heard of cycling in Barrow. Nobody had ever seen. I'd never seen any cyclists in Barrow. I saw a lot going to the yard for work, but I'd never seen anybody actually racing. And then I met a few of his mates. That's how I met a few of his mates. He was lovely. He was very kind. Very quietly spoken, very funny. The nice thing about him was he used to give everybody nicknames, and some of them still stick today. And some of the lads that I see today, I still call them by the nickname, and they're known by the nickname. I think he gave Lofty his name as well, Lord Lofty. Well, we nickname him Lord Lofty because he's the oldest one in the club, and everybody looks up to him and he's respected, and everybody likes him.
Fred Whitton, right, was a mainstay of our cycling club, the Lakes Road Club, which is based in Barrow-in-Furness, but collects riders and associates from the south end of the Lake District. It's a racing club primarily, road racing, it always has been. Fred was the main instigator of the club, the main organiser, the main person behind introducing young people to cycling through the Lakes Road Club. Well, Fred was everybody's friend. If you could drink a few pints of Guinness, you was away. Fred liked his Guinness as much as he liked his cycling. And it was the life and soul of everybody's party. The event proves his memory because we still have Fred's friends that aren't really cyclists that still help us on the event year after year after year, and are still helping us now after 25 years. That's Fred's legacy, and it's on our shoulders to keep that going.
I'm Barty. I've known Fred. I was a bear at Fred's funeral. I carried him into the church. I was the only one from outside the Lakes Road Club who took him into the church when we buried him. I consider it a great honour in cycling, one of my best honours in my life. I love the guy to bits. God bless Fred. A true friend, a gentleman. I can't speak more highly of him. Fred's part of the family. We went on holidays together, watching the Tour de France, Paris-Roubaix, and various other events in abroad with Fred. Ride our bikes, and I've got a cracking photograph you may have seen of me, Fred, and a guy called Short Piers sitting on top of Mount Vento, Tom Simpson Memorial, in the sunshine. it's one of my most treasured possessions. That photograph. He's a great guy. I couldn't speak more highly. There's an amusing story I can give you about Fred. I think we were near a place called Turquoise near Paris Railway Race, and we always used to go away and we had a kitty for the meals and the beers and that like. So the place we were staying, it was a bit, let's say, a bit rough, and you didn't feel comfortable in the situation because it was a very, well, we didn't feel comfortable in a sense. At the night there was a big guard zone virtually on the hotel, like round the hotel, and barbed wire virtually. It was a bit rough, and we decided we'd go for a beer. So it was getting on, so we walked up this road for miles and miles, couldn't find a pub open. So I says, Fred, Barty's gone back to bed, he's had enough of this, like, after walking about maybe, I don't know how many miles, but it seemed a lot to me. So we went back to the hotel, I went to bed, gets up next morning, and Fred has a big smile on his face. He says, Barty lad, I says, what's that, Fred? He says, you know when you turn back on the road there, because we couldn't find a pub, there was one 20 yards around the corner. He says, you know all the money went in the kitty, that's gone, I drank it all last night. To which I replied, well done Fred, if you were that prepared to walk that extra mile for it, you deserved it, like. And that's Fred, eh? And down to earth, honest as they come, honest riding his bike, a true gentleman, like.
We had our silver wedding anniversary, and the children had left. Jane was in the army and Paul had gone down to Leicester to live, and there was just us two. We were building a relationship where there was just us two, and he started to feel unwell, and they were treating him for an ulcer for quite a few months, and then he collapsed at work one day and in the yard, and I got a phone call that he was at hospital. Then they did a load of tests like they do, a load of blood tests and all that lot. And then I got called down to the doctors on my own. And that's when he said they only gave him 3 weeks to live. It was March, April, when all the tests were going on. May was when we got the news that well, I never told anybody about that, because, I mean, how do you tell people? How do you tell his best friend he's only got 3 weeks to live? How do you tell the kids he's only got 3 weeks to live? You know, so I never told anybody. I went to church and had a word with the priest, and I didn't tell another soul. And he went for chemo just to show Paul and Jane that he didn't want to leave them, and he was going to try and fight, and they stopped the chemo halfway through and said, not doing anything. His chemo started at the end of May, just into June, and it only went on for a fortnight, and they came and said he couldn't do any more. Go home and enjoy what you've got. And he knew that he was terminally ill. He knew that it wasn't long. He put his head down and it never came back up again. The night of the funeral was, I wanted it, because he was such a loving and happy man. I wanted it. I didn't want it all down, low key. I wanted it happy, and you know, I wanted him to feel as if he was at that funeral, he would enjoy it. All the lads were there, all his work colleagues were there. The church was packed out. At the evening of the funeral, they came back to our house with Paul and Jane and myself, and all the lads were all over the floor, all sat on the floor talking. I got some crates of beer in. They were on the arms of the chairs, all just talking about him amongst themselves. Do you remember when he did this? Do you remember when he did that? And it came from that. One of the lads had said, should we have put a ride on for the Macmillan nurses? Because Fred loved his Macmillan nurse, Pam Dilks. He absolutely loved her, and she loved him.
When he died, we decided that we would have a small memorial for him, just to remember Fred, and we had a ride round the Lake District. It wasn't a small ride, it was 100 odd mile, but it was that popular after the first event that we decided to do it again, and again, and again. And here we are 25 years later, going from 80 riders who basically were all friends and family of Fred, to now 2,500 people, which we've got to ballot for, because we're always vastly oversubscribed with people wanting to do it.
I'm Maya Whitten. I'm Fred's granddaughter.
And I'm Callum Whitten, Fred's grandson. Well, we've grown up with it all our life, to be fair, with obviously the challenge. I was born in 2002, so I was born after my granddad sadly passed away. So it's just kind of like we've been into it all our lives, and it's how we meet all our granddad's friends. And it's the only way we can really connect after that.
So ever since we were a kid, we started off at Buttermere, which is one of the stations where bikers can refuel, and we'd stay up till midnight making sandwiches for that, giving out orange slices, and now obviously we run the merchandise stall. But it mainly is just a way to connect to him. Like, I know all of his friends, grandma and granddad's friends, and it's just a way to feel closer to him.
It's such a family event, even though it's massive and it's national, international, it is a family event for Fred's friends and the family. They are a massive family.
So I'm Russ, live in Oldham, been cycling for 7 years. So I'm doing my first Fred. Never done anything like it before. I was drunk when I put my name in for the ballot, and then I got the unfortunate email to say, congratulations, you've got yourself a place on the Fred. I'm not one to back down from a challenge. I've just thrown myself into it completely. My most elevation I've done in a ride is 5,400 foot of climbing, so this is going to be doubling it. So I've heard of the Fred from other cyclists. It's always been this, I guess you could say, rite of passage for a cyclist to do the Fred Whitton. I have heard it takes in, I knew there was a lot of climbing involved in it, and I knew there was a lot of miles in it, but once I signed up, then I looked into it and I thought, oh God, what have I done?
This is me. I'm Timmy Tracksuit, also Tim King, member of the Kirby Lonsdale Cycling Club. I've been a cyclist for all my life, really, but I didn't do a lot of cycling when I was young. I mean, I did a lot compared to other people of my age at the time. When I discovered the Fred, actually, it made me a cyclist. What I mean by that is that it sort of inspired me in ways that I didn't expect. Originally, I started because a whole load of guys I cycled with said, oh, we're going to do this event. In fact, I can remember the year before that, my neighbour saying, well, there's this event that happens in the Lake District, and he talked a bit about it. Friends of mine I was cycling with at the time said, well, we're going to do the Fred Whitton, and do you want to do it? And I said, well, yeah, all right then. Yeah, why not? I mean, I did quite a lot of mountain biking, so how hard can it be, right? So the first two I did were from the original start, from Coniston. I did it on a mountain bike, and actually, if I remember, I got back, it was just under 9 hours, and I got back before all the guys I was cycling with on road bikes got back.
The Fred Whitton takes place in the north west of England in the Lake District National Park. Absolutely stunning. 180 kilometres long, give or take, and blooming loads of climbing. And it is absolutely savage. I've been lucky to do amazing cycling events, all over the world. And I think on paper, people compare the Fred to something like the XIII Tour. But I would say it's far harder than the XIII Tour. Because you've got all these savage steep climbs like littered throughout, you don't have a choice. It doesn't matter how fit you are, everyone's going into the red at something like Hard Knock Pass. or the steep bits of Honister. And so it's these constant little efforts, and there's just little ramps littered throughout that are double-digit gradients, and these constant little accelerations and little bursts you have to put in all day take a huge toll, and they just burn all your matches so that you feel absolutely destroyed at the end of it. And that is, that's what makes it tough, but also makes it so rewarding. And I think of all the sort of Grand Fondos and Sportives I've done, the Fred is my favourite.
I think as a cyclist, it is the biggest event in the UK that I guess most club riders, as most cyclists, will want to do, because it's such an iconic, difficult, tough, brutal event, just because of the severity of the climbs, how many climbs there are. And I think for me, I did it when I'd not been cycling not really that long. And I think the training was just do all the hills, do all the climbs I can possibly find, all the steep ones. And I think that was my main aim. So I know a lot of other people have got like a time that they want to complete it in. For me, it was just like, I just want to get around. I want to have a nice day. I want to have as nice day as I possibly can. And just physically get around, because the climbs are brutal. They're so steep.
And the first sportive I'd ever done was the Marmotte. And if you were getting a van, we'd go down to the Alps. This is the time when you could actually go down to the Marmotte and sign on the day before and get a ride before things went massively popular. And that was considered the sportive to ride. So 112 miles with over 5,000 metres of climbing, Alpe d'Huez, Galibier, etc. And then coming back to the UK, I wanted to find something that looked like it was about as hard. And what looked like the hardest on paper was the Fred Whitton. I wanted to ride what looked to me as the UK's hardest ride.
One of my favourite ever bits of social media, about 10 years ago on Twitter, I saw someone talking about how for about the 2 or 3 weeks before the Fred every year, the West Coast mainline train service should provide an entire carriage made up of people just wanging on about the Fred. And it's definitely become a badge of honour for people in the Northwest and further afield as well, with the number of people that enter these days. But yeah, in the Northwest, it's definitely considered a thing that if you haven't ridden the Fred, you've not really experienced cycling up here.
It's just so pretty. Like, it's just, I can't even put it into words. I think if you've not been to the lakes before, I think the Fred just encapsulates like all of the beauty of what the lakes is about. So you've got really, these are not my favourite, but like really narrow. Do you like the ones at the start that aren't even like, I guess, actual climbs? And you're like, where's this come from? It's like a little narrow little lane, and you're like, what is this? So it's got like the really narrow, steep lanes, but it's also got the big, beautiful, open views like Hard Knot and Rhinos. Like, they're such pretty, beautiful climbs.
So the course these days starts and finishes in Grasmere at the showground. It's a nice gentle roll from there around Rydalwater and into Ambleside, and then down towards Bowness, but you turn left and start heading up Kirkstone Pass. The easy side of Kirkstone Pass, or I should say the easy side of Kirkstone Pass. You ride about halfway up the climb, you'll ride past a sign, a gradient sign that should say 16%, but has a really unfortunate smudge on it that makes it look like 116%. Very early on in the ride, that's a pretty chilling moment for any rider, certainly unfamiliar with the course, when you see a gradient sign saying 116%.
Now up here, you want to be tiptoeing over this climb. You know, you see people coming past you pushing 400 watts, and you just know that they're going to have a really bad day. You don't burn a single match.
You see so many people just doing their best, 20-minute power PB up Kirkstone Pass at the start of Fred Whitton. You're like, no, what are you doing?
When you get to the pub at the top, you start what can only be described as an incredibly fast and furious descent down to Brothers Water. There are usually a good few people going far faster than you might feel comfortable with coming flying past you. That takes you down towards Glenridding. And then around Ullswater, you take on the unclassified climb of Matterdale End, which is horrific when you get to it because you're not really expecting it. It's not one of the climbs that's really listed on all the scary parkour stuff that you might see in advance. It's not too bad as a climb, but it drags a little bit. Then you have the fun time section on the main road dual carriageway, which on the morning of the Fred is amazing because you have large trains of people going along.
at really high speeds together on a bit of dual carriageway, which looks brilliant on the way down into Keswick.
Out the back of Keswick, where people wave you goodbye, I love that bit. It's like you're going into there's no turning back now. Everyone who waves you off knows what's happening.
And it's at Seatoller that you meet the first really terrifying wall of the Fred, which is the first bit of Honister Pass.
You take a left turn and it really starts to kick up, and so make sure you're in the right gear for that, because often when you go on that first bit of Honister and it's like the start of Saving Private Ryan. I've been there before, and there's just bodies all over the road and people falling over and weaving and crashing into each other and unclipping.
But come Honister now, you're gonna have to try a bit more. It's the first proper steep climb. Yeah, you'll see a lot of people now getting into deep water, weaving from side to side. I think the times I've done it, it's been the place where I've most likely been taken off by someone falling off in front of me.
And eventually you come out at the top of that woodland after about, I don't know, maybe half a mile, 3/4 of a mile, and the gradient eases off a little bit, and you're suddenly met with the top of the pass, which is an amazing sight, up to the slate mine. From the slate mine you descend very, very fast down through
the gates to Mordor
at the slate mine at Honister, down towards Buttermere. Absolutely stunning view. Definitely cling on for dear life for the first 200 metres of that descent, and then you can flow nicely down the hill after that. That descent is probably one of my biggest tips for people taking on the Fred, which is just for the first 200 metres of that descent, take it super easy. It's off camber, it's really bumpy, and it's incredibly steep. And if you overcook that first bit, you're kind of never really under control for the rest of the descent. If you take it easy, you can let go of the brakes at the first bridge and just fly down the valley, and it's absolutely beautiful. From there, you get to the first feed stop, the YHA. If you can, I would try and avoid that feed stop. It's always a bit of a car crash of people trying to get into the toilets, get some food, refuel. And then after that feed stop, you're immediately met with Newlands House, which is a really, really tough climb. And if you've just filled your body with food, then you're A, heavier, and B, probably struggle a little bit more than you should do. So I would hold off and try and get your food in Keswick when you get there after. Newlands House, one of my favourite places in the Lake District, absolutely beautiful.
Newlands is my favourite lake of the lakes climbs. Until I rode the Fred, it was the only one I'd done. It was for the '93 National Hill Climb Championship, and to this day, it's still my favourite. It's just this thin ribbon of tarmac that bisects this green bank, and it's green the other side, magical, and it's got a real big kick at the end. It's not the steepest, but you get to the top, and there's always a good photographer there, so get your gurning face ready.
And then beyond that, the absolutely stunning Newlands Valley down towards Stair. One of my favourite places in the Lake District, absolutely beautiful, and you'll be flying down there as well. Watch out for the 2 random bits of switchbacks that come on that long descent. I mean, it's sort of 3 or 4 miles, and there's 2 points where you go through farms where you suddenly hit left-hand hairpins where you just want to be slightly aware of where you are. This, for me, was one of the first points on the Fred where you really bump into large crowds of people out with cowbells, making a huge racket. Having ridden the Fred as a Four Seasons ride just on a random day with no crowds and no road closures, and then having ridden it on the actual day of the event, you really, really start to appreciate the amazing effect of having a crowd at this point. So you climb up through Whinlatter Pass, probably the easiest of the big categorised climbs on the route, but it's still pretty tough.
Yeah, it's like an alpine climb, Whinlatter, much shallower gradient. You can get a bigger tempo. It always reminds me of the Col de Telegraph for some reason. You've got the conifer trees, you've got a few decent curves and bends. A really nice climb.
And then towards the top, you go up through the fir forests, and it's amazing with the number of people there. It's quite a popular place for people to get rid of some kit that they've been carrying since a cold start in the morning, or do a proper refuel. So at this point that you kind of go through the woods and then you turn left at Lawton, and almost every year at Lawton you're going to turn left into a headwind.
The bit that's after Whinlatter, there's the long section that people kind of forget about that goes over Cold Fell.
No good memories of Cold Fell ever. Really horrible place.
I don't think anyone's got any happy stories of Cold Fell.
Even the name sounds grim. Cold Fell.
And then round to the coast, and then back in to Eskdale, which has the amusing Strava segment name, The Shit Bit, which always makes me laugh because, well, it is.
And that headwind's going to stay with you over Fangsbrow, Koobaburra, until you get to the rave that's occurring on Koobaburra with Team 13, who have massive speakers out, huge gazebos, making an unruly racket. Brilliant. Some of the best bits of the Fred. You're just riding along, really in the hurt locker at this point. You've been out for probably at least 4 or 5 hours, and suddenly out of nowhere there is quite literally a rave happening on the hill ahead of you. It's amazing.
We have a club on the northwest side of the Lake District which has been introduced to cycling through the Fred Whitton Challenge bit by bit, and it's named Team 13. Do a fantastic help for us on the northwest side where they take over most of the marshalling points and provide a water station but a bit of entertainment as well at the same time. If you're feeling a bit down in the dumps when you reach Team 13's feed station, I'm sure you'll come out smiling and singing.
So I'm Kelly, I'm from Team 13, we're the cycling club that's based out West Cumbria. We do the water station at the Leaps, which is about 70 mile in. We started quite a while ago, just as a bit of support for our own riders that were doing the Fred, and we'd just turn up there and we'd be there with food and drinks and whatnot for, you know, if they needed it. And then as the years have gone on, it's just got bigger and bigger. And yeah, I think we're known as the party station now. Whatever anybody needs, we've had people who've had full cables fitted in emergency situations where they were going to end the bike ride there. So we're lucky that we've got people who can fix things and, you know, tinker with bikes and get people back on the move. But anything you need, we just try and, you know, give you a bit of a boost when you least expect it, but maybe when you need it. But it's definitely the highlight of the year for us, supporting wise, definitely. It's a brilliant day, absolutely love it.
And then you've got Hard Knot Fell, which you've probably heard of. It's okay.
There's going to be a whole lot of pain to come before you even get to Hard Knot.
At that point, all you're thinking about is getting to Hard Knot, which is savage. I don't care who you are, Hard Knot is really hard.
Hard Knot. Almost dreading it. It's hiding round here somewhere. I know it is. But where? Where the friggin' hell's Hard Knot?
And there's a sense of dread you get as you approach Hard Knot. That first moment you catch sight of Hard Knot, the lyric from Black Sabbath comes into, I'm Ozzy in my head going, please God help me. And it's just like, hey, who built a road up there? It's just madness.
I'm always paranoid about Hard Knot, and I always think, is this the year I'm going to have to stop?
Hard Knot is like the pinnacle of that ride, isn't it? Because you've just done all the other climbs, your legs are really tired. And when we got there, I still didn't know if I was going to be able to get up it because it's just so steep.
You're knackered by now. You've got 100, whoever you are, you've got 100 mile on your legs, you know, and you're getting towards the end of it. And it's just survival. You take it inch by inch. You scan the road. Yeah, there's very not likely to be any cars going down. You're looking for any just slight decreasing gradient. There's some little passing places. Use those. Grab a bit of rest here and there.
And there is that middle section though where you can get a bit of reprieve at 9%, which is just ridiculous, but you know you can
really make use of that middle bit, the flat little bit. And then the last bit, it's all hell for leather. That's where all the photographers are, waiting for you to fail. Don't give them the pressure of doing that. It seems cruel, but then you do get the amazing views into Great Langdale, which is all worth it.
And then you've got Rhino's Pass, which again you've probably heard of. It's fine. It's 25-30% in places. You've done nearly 100 miles at this point. You know, there's nothing to worry about.
Well, Rhinos, once you've done Hard Knot, Rhinos feels easy. Weirdly, it's not. And warps your perception.
Descend that, and then the old route used to go over Hawkshead Hill and back into Coniston, but the new route takes you over Bleer Tarn, and you've got to climb another big hill and do another scary descent down into Great Langdale.
A climb that's just been reintroduced in the last 2 or 3 events, which is Bleer Tarn. Bleer Tarn, not a greatly known climb, but it takes you from Little Langdale into Great Langdale, and one of the best views in the world at the top of the climb, where is basically all down to Dungeon Girl and a nice little saunter back to Grasmere. The event has got that large now that we can't do it with just a few volunteers and not having volunteers here, there and everywhere. We actually need 350 volunteers on the day, and believe it or not, we manage to get them every year. Our volunteers are fantastic. They're fantastic. They come back year after year after year. Every corner, every sort of pinch point on our ride is marshalled by at least 2 marshals, 5 or 6 in some places. We have the mountain rescue out who provide us with rescue on the fells if it's needed, first aid. We have first aid teams out all around the course. One of the big first aid teams is the one from BAE Systems, where Fred worked as a project engineer. It's still the same lads that knew Fred that come year in, year out. Not cyclists, but they come and they act as one of our main first aiders on the way around. But we need everybody from marshals to signing on to people that can cook, people that can do sandwiches, people can do tea and biscuits, everything.
So one of the other things I've always tried to do is improve my time, which I have sort of managed, but of course with the Fred it's a little bit changeable like the weather. Just when I got the closest I've ever been, I've done 7-Eleven a couple of years, and I actually did 7 hours 12 minutes a couple of years ago, but this was only after the Blee Tarn extension had been added. And I went up to Paul afterwards and I said, you know, Paul, I would have been a sub-7 rider if it wasn't for the extension of the Fred Whitton. And he looked straight back at me and smirked and just said, well, it's always good to have something to aim for, isn't it?
It's consumed everything. It's constantly there.
But I've even perfected the way I wrap my sandwiches. But that is the level of detail you start thinking about when you're trying to improve every little bit.
And this is where the guilt side of me comes in now, because I've sacrificed time with my family to go out training. It's become like I've become obsessed with getting the training and getting the miles in. I have to do it, I have to do it, I have to do it, because the last thing I want on that day is to think, did you train hard enough?
I wouldn't achieve what I do without the support from the people around me. I have a network of people that help, and without those people, it would be very hard to achieve what I do achieve, which is, in my own little world, something I'm very proud of.
Everybody talks about the marshals. They come every year. You know, we get this. We get the marshals every year, and the riders. Oh, they've done this, they've done that. But nobody thinks about the wives and the girlfriends left at home on a Sunday when they're going out training, getting the kids uniform ready for them, getting the meals ready. I've been there. I know what it felt like. You know, where is he? The tea's ready. Where is he? You know, it's them, I think, that should have a medal.
When I finish the event one year, I'm then starting my training for the event the following year. And that's just the way it has been for quite a while.
I just don't know when to start carb loading. That's the one thing I'm excited for.
Yeah, I'm really nervous, but we're here now, ready to go, and yeah, hopefully get through this.
Am I ready? Yeah.
I think if you don't like climbs, you're not in for a fun day.
Hopefully I can latch on some other people who are the same ability as me, make some friends on the day, which I think, because I'm going into this solo, so I think picking up and riding with some people is going to be, I think being around other people is going to be a big, big key to the day. And if you keep with positive people and try and keep positive myself, we can all be one big happy family.
Wow, honest to God, it's spectacular. It's so good.
I would say the thing with it is to give it a go, but not to be or feel bad if you have to push it on one of the climbs or a couple of the climbs, because the experience of the whole thing is just so good. Like, I think as a whole, like, it's a beautiful, stunning location with a lot of people that are obviously in the same boat. And I just think it's I think it's one of those ones that you have to just do at least once.
The whole experience of riding the Fred is a brilliant one, and as I said before, you know, the ability of people who've ridden the Fred to wang on about riding the Fred is because it is such an amazing experience. You know, I think in the old days there was a kind of very machismo badge of honour, I've ridden the Fred, I'm a hard man kind of approach to things, and I don't think it is that anymore. I think it's more just about, I've experienced this thing and you should experience it too. And you know, whether that's fast or slow, you know, if you're going to get under 7, you know, if you can get under 7 hours, brilliant. But I think the last time I did it, I might have been 10 hours on the road, and it was just as good an experience. You know, different goals for different people, but it's just a brilliant experience. Can't recommend it enough.
I just love it. You come around a corner and there's people out of their houses with their cowbells and, you know, and some random part of the course, and cheering you on, and that just lifts you in a way that you just don't get on the road normally.
The first time you get to Newlands House and you look up at the riders strewn up the road going up, because it cuts so beautifully up the side of a valley, and I mean, thankfully most of the time it's pretty much a tailwind up there, you know, unless the wind's coming from the wrong direction, in which case, I mean, God help us all, it's so exposed that you'd really struggle with a northerly wind, or an easterly wind, but yeah, the first time you see everyone kind of just there, it's perfectly framed, it's the most amazing sight, and yeah, it's one of those climbs that just keeps getting steeper and steeper and steeper and steeper until you reach the top. So yeah, definitely save some energy for that one.
I'd literally I think we'd gone around a couple of the first switchbacks and someone had written my name on the road, and I was like, I got off, I was already walking at that point because there was a guy in front of me, I don't know if he was on the Fred or not, he had panniers on his bike. And he was zigzagging in front, and like mentally I was like, if someone's zigzagging, like I can't, because I feel like on that, when it's so steep, you have to pick your own, you need to just be like going at your own speed, your own pace, and know the line you're going. But this guy it just put me off. And so I stopped, and then I got really like frustrated with myself. I was like, oh, I really want to be able to do the whole climb. And as I just started walking, I just saw my name on the road, and I just started crying. I was like, so nice someone would do that to support me, and obviously from YouTube people knew that I was doing it, so it was just that was like a real nice highlight of it. And I think I guess that shows what the Fred is all about, like the community of it, people supporting each other, and it's just a really nice part of it.
It's like the Travelator in Gladiator's Heart Knot. You don't kind of know what you're going to be able to do until you get there. You find out a lot about yourself when you go up Heart Knot after you've done 100 miles of Lake District passes.
Well, I'm not past. Lovely hill for the walk. Tried pedalling it. Didn't get very far. My legs are fried. Yeah, as good as my training's been, I don't think anything can repay for this.
My favourite though is definitely 2018, which is the last time I did the event, and it's just my favourite because I did it with a bunch of like close friends, and we rode it together, and we've reminisced about it many times, and we all agree that that's one of our like best days we've ever had on the bike, like full stop, because the Fred offers something that other events don't tend to offer, like something that you don't get from a race. We all got to the finish of the Fred that day feeling absolutely battered, like we'd given our all, and there's something a bit sadomasochistic but also cathartic and about that, and there's a real good sense of achievement that you don't get from a lot of things, you know, because we're racing to do as fast a time as possible, but it's not a race. We're all working together, we're all killing ourselves, we're all, you know, riding through and off the whole way round as hard as we can, all pulling turns when we can, and no one's like, you know, hiding in the wheels, not doing a turn, not, you know, trying to tactically do us over. It's this shared experience of everyone working together and battering themselves. It's something that's really nice. And then when you combine that with the incredible scenery of the Lake District and I mean, there's something just about the lakes, isn't there? I mean, even when it's raining, I love it, and I go there, and I don't know, it lifts me. It's like it's one of my happy places, definitely. I love it.
I went a couple of years ago just to spectate. So I went and I went out to Hardknot and took my sign and cheered a load of people on, and then I came back and signed some books at the end.
Actually, one of my favourite moments was volunteering. It was such a brilliant experience to watch the best part of 3,500 people riding past on a single day in one of the most beautiful places. I mean, the top of Bleatarn is kind of one of those Hollywood views that, if you were going to pick one place in the Lake District to take a photo of and show people what riding bikes in the lakes can look like, it's that. And on a sunny day, that was amazing.
So whilst I am desperate to hit this sub-7 mark, and I will be 59 this year, but I'm still convinced I can do it. I'm still convinced I can trim all of the little optimal micro gains that will allow me to get that prize, even if they do add another 4 miles.
It's making me want to do it again. No, not. I might just go and do. Maybe I would do it again. Even if you've driven it, you just don't get the feel of like how nice that place is. Like when you're on a bike, you can smell everything, you can feel everything. It's just way more. It's way more immersed in it. I think Fred is the only way to do it.
It was one tough ride. Oh.
The camaraderie and the atmosphere is amazing.
The camaraderie in the car park, it's just full of broken men with 100-yard stairs, and women, sorry, just caked in dirt. You're not just going there to ride 112 miles in the lakes, you're going there to be part of something. It's a special ride.
Whitten day.
We've actually raised more than £2 million for Macmillan, which is now Macmillan Council support, and it will still keep going, so every year is going to be a bonus for everybody. Since the start, we've also raised money for the 2 air ambulances. That's the Great North Air Ambulance and the North West Air Ambulance. Both of them we have used them in the past, if we were to say that, and we are grateful for their help. We also support the Mountain Rescue, which anybody who knows the Lake District are one of the most deserving people, to be on our charity list. They're our 4 main charities, and they've all benefited greatly from this event.
I'm very proud of what the lads have done. I haven't done anything. I'm proud of what the lads have done, and I think Fred would have been as well. And I like what the money's done. I really do like it. And to see his name all over as well. I was with my sister up in Scotland, and while we were having breakfast, a load of bikes went past, and half a dozen of them had Fred Whitton t-shirts on. I think if it had been one of the other lads, I think he would have been the Lord Lofty. He would have been the leader of them all, doing it for someone else.
If you did anything, worked with Fred, helped him out, rode with him, had a drink with him, his favourite saying was, "That's a good effort, lad." Fred will be up there saying it out loud.
Sadistic and beautiful. Sadistically beautiful. Oh, you go! There you go.
So is that it? We're done then? Yeah? Everything's all you need? Excellent. Is it alright if I put my normal clothes back on then? Yeah, yeah. Good. It's been nice. Thanks for coming round. It's been really good to see you. Just leave. Oh. Thank you very much.